that I'm going to discuss is incest. A very emotive subject, and a subject which we as a society must address, because these children suffer in silence because they have no one to assist them within the current structure. I will limit my observations to purely my own personal cases that I have dealt with. And the cases that I have dealt with have all been about female victims. Of course, there are boys who also get abused, but that has not so far been my personal experience. They tend to be in the age group of 8 to 14, and the enormity for a young child, I also find it actually very difficult to express. Just imagine the terrible situation for a young girl who finds herself in this situation. The situation is made worse for her because it's either a member of the family or an extended member of the family. This is a relationship of trust. That trust has been breached. In each case, the girls turned to their mothers and said, "Mum, this has been going on." And in each case, the mother was not able to offer support to her child. The mothers have said to the daughters either they were lying, they were mischievous, or they were just dirty girls. The mothers chose to ignore the girls. The girls then went on to make disclosure to people outside the family. This could be a best friend, a neighbour, a teacher, and it is at that point, after disclosure, that the police and the courts get involved, and it's at this point that I then get involved. In a majority of the cases that I have dealt with, the perpetrators have been members of the maternal family, and that in itself has made it difficult for the mothers to be able to deal with the matter adequately within the eyes of the law. In understanding the problems, the court have wanted to know why is it that these mothers have failed to support their daughters in such a critical and such a difficult issue. Until this point, these have been exemplary mothers. They have provided good enough or perfect parenting. They have addressed the child's educational needs, physical needs, emotional needs, medical needs, no problem. And in trying to get to the root of the problem, I will again put before you the responses that the mothers have shared with me, and I hope that this then gives us some insight as to, again, what troubles the mothers and what has held them back. The mothers will say things like, "I cannot firstly accept that a member of my family could do such a thing," and for them, denial is the best option. Other mothers will say, "Well, because the perpetrator is a member of my family, if my husband were to come to know of this, this will be the end of my marriage. I will lose everything. There is too much at stake for me. Therefore, the choice I made in those circumstances was, I'm going to ignore it and hope it will go away." The mothers will also say that they feel ashamed in the eyes of the husband, his family, and indeed the community at large. And the other matter, again, that the mothers will say is, "Well, what am I going to do with this girl? She is soiled. Nobody will marry her. Her marriage prospects are zero. But if I go public with her, what about her brothers and sisters?" The knock-on effect is not just for the child, it's for the rest of the family, and then the cousins and so on. And the mothers have then said that they've really felt they've had no choice but to just keep quiet and hope that somehow or other they will get through this. She is also concerned that the society at large will not see the child as a victim, but will see her as a seductress. They will not see that the child has been wronged. They will see that the child did something which encouraged or she acted provocatively in terms of what happened to her. Again, the mothers have financial concerns that she will end up poor, she will not have a home, she will have nothing. Now, the other loss for these mothers, again, is that her own family, the maternal family, will also disown her. So she has everything to lose. And we somehow need to give her something to say to her, support your child, and after that we will help you pick up the pieces, because at the moment there is nobody for her. The mothers have also said, for instance, well, if my nephew or my brother or somebody goes to prison again, I will have to live with that nightmare for the rest of my life, and my family will not forgive me for that. So, a sad topic, but these are issues that we really need to have solutions for, and these problems are not going to go away. Now, the other issue that was touched upon earlier was forced marriage in Britain. Of course, not to be confused with arranged marriages, which work very well. A forced marriage is a marriage conducted without the consent of one or both parties, and is a marriage in which duress, whether it's physical or emotional, is a factor. Again, forced marriages affect people of all cultures and religions, and is often cloaked in cultural tolerance, which makes it very difficult to deal with it. Of course, there's Article 12 of the European Convention of Human Rights and Article 16 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which provides the right for parties to enter into a marriage free and with full consent. The Forced Marriage Act 2007 in England and Wales makes it a criminal offence if breached. If breached, the culprit can be sent to prison for a maximum term of 2 years, or a fine, or both. The courts are empowered also to be able to make issue forced marriage protection orders, and the applications can be made either by the victim themselves or by someone who is concerned about the welfare of a young person, and which would then ensure that the victim can be taken to a place of safety, and for someone who is at risk of being taken abroad against their consent, that assistance can also be given. There were existing laws dealing with annulment of forced marriages, and they were very tedious and took a long time, and the courts have now reformed that annulment of forced marriages, and the process is now simplified, it's shorter, it's quicker. I have been delighted to be part of a legal system where the courts address a serious social issue with sensitivity and humanity. Now again, we heard earlier from the earlier speakers about the dowry system, and the dowry system is again a concern in Britain amongst the Indian expatriates, despite the practice having been declared illegal in India in 1961 under the Dowry Prohibition Act. I have read a report which is dated in 1997, which claimed that about 5,000 women in India die each year because of dowry deaths. So it is a very significant issue, and there are a number of Indian origin parliamentarians currently lobbying for anti-dowry legislation. Of course, there's a culture for the Indians in Britain to hold lavish weddings and give generous dowries. There is social pressure, and of course there is expectation that there will be a generous dowry. I have been involved in numerous divorce settlements, and it's always a hard message when I have to tell the girl's father that you spent X thousand pounds on the lavish wedding and the dowry, and you're not going to get a penny of it back, because the courts cannot compensate you for that. That is a choice you made, and that is your